G'day and welcome to Not the Farmer's Wife podcast. I'm CJ Steedman and I'm not the farmer's wife, I'm the farmer. I'm also a mum to MJ and OJ and a full-time off-farm worker. And like most farmers, I'm able to farm with the help of my family and my partner, who I call the handy helper. On Mojo Homestead, we grow chickens, goats, cows and bees, and we do it using regenerative agriculture and holistic management practices. If, like me, you love all things farming and homesteading, then we'd love to have you along for the ride. So let's get farming. G'day everyone and welcome to episode 100 of Not the Farmer's Wife. I am so stoked to have got to 100. When I started the podcast, my aim was just to let people know what we were doing on the farm. It was just to open the conversation. I felt like there was a lot of people that weren't talking about farming or homesteading or being self-sufficient anymore. And to get to 100 is a pretty special feat. Like, I don't think, and sorry guys, but it's predominantly women. Women don't pat themselves enough on the back when they do something good, when we do that awesome, amazing thing. We don't sit there and go, good work, you did well. And Australians in particular, we're terrible at it because of tall poppy syndrome. We just knock people down when they pat themselves on the back. And I've said it before, American friends of mine are so good at being their own cheer squad and we just don't do it. So this episode today is going to be all about where we've come from on Mojo Homestead, where I've come from, and what we've changed over the last 100 episodes and what we've got going into the future. And if you listen all the way to the end, please do, because I have a very special giveaway. Yay, super excited. Very special giveaway for people. And you won't know unless you get all the way to the end. So stay with me. I'm not selling anything. I'm giving something away. So you really want to be there. Anyway, to be my own cheer squad, I'm just going to go through and show how I've changed over the last 2 years. It's almost been 2 years. I think February was when I started recording back in 2023. So we've done 100 episodes. The only episode I missed, for those that have been listening for all that time, Christmas Day 2023, I ended up in hospital on Christmas Day, and I was actually going to record an episode Christmas Day because I didn't have kids in the house. They'd gone to their dad's for the afternoon, and I was like, or the morning of the afternoon, I think, and I was going to record. Handy helper was at work. I thought, I'll just get in and record an episode. And I woke up having a severe asthma attack, and I'd never even had asthma. So it was pretty scary, and I ended up in hospital for the whole day. And I gave myself a leave pass and said, I'm not recording on that day. But I have released an episode every week out of 101 weeks, I've released 100 episodes in 100 weeks. So I think that's a pretty good effort. And I'll give myself a big pat on the back for that one. And at the same time, take into account, I run this podcasting business, the farm business, part-time while working full-time, and I also have two fully dependent children. So it's a big undertaking to go, no, I am definitely going to stick with it and record. Now, that being said, we don't have a huge audience here at Not the Farmer's Wife. We have a relatively small but very loud cheer squad. And thank you to all of those people that have been with me all that time. If you know of anybody that would be interested in listening to this podcast, please tell them about it. That is the way these podcasts kind of get out there into the ether. And hopefully, and I'll talk more about it a bit later, but hopefully in the next 12 months, we might have a few guest appearances on the podcast. So yeah, keep tuned for that. Anyway, over the last 2 years, what's changed in the last 2 years? So when I started this, it was a real hobby for me. It was a hobby farm. I had not a massive intention to make money off it. I just wanted to cover my costs. I wanted to be able to sell enough eggs so that I wasn't paying for chicken feed and still provide my family with eggs. But my focus kind of shifted over the last 100 episodes, where it wasn't just about me telling people what we were doing on the farm, but more about getting some education out there, because I realised as I talked to more and more people about raising pastured poultry and then beekeeping and cows and goat's milk and things like that, the more I talked to people about it, the more I realised there was a huge gap in knowledge where I just assumed people knew these things. And as time went on, it became really, really apparent to me that some of the stuff I was talking about, people had never heard of. They'd never experienced it. They had no idea about it. And yeah, it was a bit daunting for me to see that many people who had no knowledge of it. So my focus kind of shifted from hobby farming and trying to make that small income for myself to more wanting to educate people. And then as time went on, I thought, I don't want to just educate them so that they know. I want to educate them so that they can do it for themselves as well. Because I think that's really important to share that information and knowledge. If you have information and knowledge, why not put it out there into the world? It seems like a real trap to me to get knowledge. People want to get knowledge and keep it to themselves, and I just can't see the benefit in that. I don't need to have every single person as my egg customer. I don't want every person as my egg customer. I have people that are never going to keep chickens to raise for eggs, and they're my customers. But if 50% of the population wants to grow eggs, well, they're not going to be my customers. They're never going to be my customers. Most of them, I only sell locally anyway, so most of my customers are within a 25, 50 kilometre radius of my home. So to me, keeping that knowledge in prevents all these other people from doing all these amazing things that I'm doing here. And I just can't see the sense in that. So we kind of shifted from that hobby farm and this is what we're doing and what do you think of what we're doing to this is what we're doing. And you know what? You can do it too. And then as time went on with the eggs, telling people about how to raise their own chickens for eggs, then it became apparent that people also wanted to raise chickens for meat. And they want to raise goats for milk. I mean, I get asked, I could not tell you the number of times I get asked, do I sell raw goat's milk? And I can legally sell raw goat's milk here in Australia. You absolutely can. We can't sell raw cow's milk in Australia, except for pet consumption and bath products. But legally, we can't sell it. Goat's milk you can legally sell if you wanted to go to the trouble of setting up a proper dairy and getting certified and all those kinds of things. I don't want to do that. So I actually don't want to sell my milk to other people. I don't even want to sell my cheese to other people. I like my goat's milk cheese. I want to keep it and eat it myself. But what I do want to do is help other people understand how easy it is to do these things yourself. It's really not as difficult as you could imagine. And I think we talk it up in our head that it's going to be so much harder. It's really not. And so the more people I get that message out to, I don't mind if that does me out of a customer as far as eggs or meat or milk, because that's not my target is selling those products. Yeah, I sell my eggs. That just covers our feed costs. But there's so many other things that I could also sell that I know that people won't grow themselves or make themselves. And that's fine. As time progresses, I'm looking at making my own goat's milk soap and selling that. Now, when I do that, there'll be people that will just buy the soap off me. They don't want to make the soap. But do I want to get the information out there about how you could make the soap? Absolutely. Like, if you're not going to be one of my customers, then why not give you the information to do it yourself? I just can't see the point in holding it back. That being said, my courses and books, I'm going to sell them. I need to make money at the same time. So, yeah, to run this business isn't free. And that people get really funny about that. Like, oh, but if you're just giving out the information, why are you not just giving out the information? Well, I still have to live. So selling it, but to me, the prices that I put on things are very, very low. I don't think I mark things up very high. I'm certainly not in that price range of selling $1,000 courses or $50 books. I just want to cover my costs. But I also need to make some income, because if I don't make an income, I can't keep doing what I do. So that's it. We've transitioned from hobby to education. Now, when we first started it was a lot about just having a little bit of produce that we could supply for ourselves that we didn't have to buy from the supermarket. In the last 12 months, that has shifted so much. The whole purpose of bringing out the book series of Ditch the Store was that I wanted to enable people to get to a point where they didn't have to rely on supermarkets. And it kind of came out of the whole COVID process. I mean, we're rural, and I don't think we had anywhere near the shutdowns that some people have. Take my hat off to people in Melbourne, in Australia. They were the most shut down city in the world, I think, from memory. I read a report somewhere that they were. But a lot of places were shut down. A lot of places were getting limited supply and stock of things. The toilet paper wars at Costco in Canberra were insane. People were fighting over, like they would drop a pallet of toilet paper and people were lined up trying to grab 2 of those, it's like 48 rolls in a pack. And they were trying to grab them. And Costco staff are there going, no, you can only take 1 each. We've limited it to 1 per customer. And people are going in, getting a trolley, putting one in, grabbing another trolley, putting another one in, and then trying to take them out separately through the checkouts to get around it. I don't know what they were going to do with them. At the end of the day, it depends how many people live in your house, I guess, but I don't understand the need for that much toilet paper. But things like eggs, a lot of shelved goods were not available during Costco, and partially it was the transport industry not being able to function as well because people were in lockdown. They were able to go to work if they were essential. I worked right through. I was an essential worker, so I had to work right through. But it did make it really hard. And I think people got to a point at the end of COVID where they're like, well, fuck this. Why am I so reliant on the supermarket? And I definitely went through that period as well where I kind of went, God, why are we so dependent on them? So my shift really changed from just having enough to kind of boost our supply and give us a few more things without having to spend a fortune at the supermarket to, can I replace the supermarket completely? And, at the end of the day, the chances of me replacing toilet paper from the supermarket, pretty low. I don't think I'm going to convince the family to use reusable wipes for the toilet. Just don't think that's going to happen. I know people have done it, and really truly self-sustaining people do that kind of thing. Take my hat off to you. That's probably one step I can't go to. Can I make my own toothpaste? Can I make my own laundry powder? Can I make my own dishwashing liquid? Yeah, absolutely. There are lots of things that I can still do that aren't really stretching the friendship with the family. So we definitely did change over the course of the last 12 months where we shifted from just supplying a little bit of extra and the things that we really felt important about. Like raw milk to me is a no-brainer. After having a kid that was diagnosed as lactose intolerant and then discovering that when he drank raw milk, he had no side effects whatsoever, it made it a really easy choice for me to go, that is something I want to replace from the supermarkets. We still buy supermarket milk in the off-season over the 3 or 4 months when the girls aren't producing milk. We still buy milk. I don't buy UHT milk anymore because UHT milk is like an explosion for our family. I think everybody ends up with a gut ache, even MJ, who has never had a problem with milk. She's not a huge milk drinker, but she's never had a problem with it. Even she can't tolerate it. So, but the handy helper, I and OJ, we die if we drink UHT milk. We're in agony. So we definitely don't buy that even in the off season. We'll only buy fresh milk. And I try and buy fresh milk from smaller dairies where it's unhomogenized or the cold pressed. So it's still pasteurized, but it goes through less of a process than the highly pasteurized milk does. And we find that we can cope for 3 or 4 months of the year on that. I do freeze some milk, and eventually I'll get a freeze dryer and then I can dry milk and make powdered milk myself. But that is... that's a shift that I think was a good shift, to go from just a little bit of self-sufficiency to let's get rid of the supermarkets. I mean, really, if you can, why wouldn't you? The next one is business and brand building I had on my list. And certainly, like I say, with the Ditch the Store books, that was a real conscious effort to say, this is who we are, this is what we're doing. But even Mojo Home said we were trying to do an open day this year and it just never happened because of my knee surgery. All the best laid plans go south. But we have built up more of a fan base. We've certainly got a lot more followers. My email list has grown exponentially over the last 12 months because I've really pushed that thing of I want to help people to help themselves. Now, whether you're a paying customer or just a freebie follower, it doesn't really matter to me. If you're getting something out of it, excuse me, if you're getting something out of it, then for me, that's a win. I don't want I have people that comment on my social media posts who are just trolls and haters. And I joke about it. I had my first really serious troll the other day who called me a fat, ugly something that, with an agenda. Anyway, I laughed with the handy helper out. He was quite upset about it. And I said, don't stress about it. Like all the people in social media who really start getting their message out there, they all say, once you get your troll, your first real troll, you've made it. So to me, that was like a milestone that Mojo Homestead is actually starting to become something when people are commenting nasty comments to me about me, killing all the animals and slaughtering poor pets, and I don't know what else he was carrying on about. But I think it might have been a climate change post, and I was talking about the fact that regenerative agriculture and cows are actually beneficial for the environment. And this guy was just like, no, planes are way better. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. Clearly not right in the head. Anyway, we have over the last 12 months made a really conscious effort to build Mojo Homestead, the brand, in that we are sticking to our guns on things, and we're presenting a very united front. And part of that was midway through last year, 2024, Handy Helper and I sat down. We have like team meetings occasionally, which are like family meetings. And he spoke to me about the fact that he wanted to play a bigger role in the business because he's always been not the face of it and always stepped back from it. And he was listening to some podcasts and things like that. And he said to me, I actually would like to play a little bit more of a role in it. And so we trialled it. We started doing the podcast together when we can, and they've worked brilliantly. I think he and I have very similar beliefs, but we also communicate well together. So it's worked as far as I can tell. And certainly, hopefully, that's brought more male listeners in because I know from my analytics, I have way more female listeners than I do male listeners. So, I'm hoping that the Handy Helper's influence might make some people go, oh, hang on, it might be called Not the Farmer's Wife, but it's okay for blokes to listen to it as well. I'm hoping that I'm getting something out there for everyone, for families. Even when I say families, not necessarily a nuclear family of mum and dad and 2 kids. It could be mum and mum. It could be no kids. It could be grandma, mum and a kid living together. A family unit to me is just a group of people who are related who live together. So hopefully I'm getting something out there for everybody. So the brand building will keep going in the direction that it's gone over the next 12 months. Hopefully it will become even bigger and better. Ditch the Store is a brand that I've registered that I'm moving ahead with on the books, and I'll talk more about that shortly. But it's definitely been a really active or proactive change as far as that brand. Advocacy. When I first started this, I was a little bit shy about doing things that were controversial. I was a little bit nervous about putting out there that, for me, climate change, while the climate does change, I was a little bit nervous saying I'm not a firm believer in the climate change crisis that some governments talk about. And I was a bit concerned that they were using climate pollution to say that there was climate change. There is absolutely climate pollution, and I think anybody that's taken transport, uses fuel or gas, anything like that. I mean, I don't want to get into that on this episode, but there is so much pollution in the world that absolutely it impacts our environment and our climate. The atmosphere is absolutely impacted by the amount of pollution that humans put into the air and to the ground. We do it because we are trying to get more out of things. We're trying to get more oil out of the ground. We're trying to get more plants out of the soil. And so we over chemical fertilize things in order to produce more. Instead of going, what's a better way of doing it? What's a way that we could do it to get just as much growth out of the soil, but not using chemical fertilizers? We don't think like that. We just think, let's get bigger and better every time, instead of let's go slower and let's do it properly. And so I was a little bit underconfident to kind of raise those issues. I was underconfident to talk about dispatching animals because, I know there's a lot of people out there who are either vegan or, they might have, and can I just say, as a 17-year-old, I decided I was no longer eating animal flesh and I went vegetarian. I don't think I ever went vegan. I still ate eggs and drank milk, but I went vegetarian. And I lasted 3 weeks. I felt like shit. My hair just went to shit. And I used to always have really nice hair before I went grey. I didn't lose weight. I kind of got a bloated belly, which was kind of, as a 17-year-old girl, was not the thing that I was aiming for. But my skin went to shit. I broke out. I had terrible skin, and I've always had reasonable skin. I've never been an acne sufferer. So for me, there was a whole bunch of things, and I was tired all the time. I just had no energy. And I thought, oh, maybe this isn't the right thing to do. And pretty quick smart, I kind of went, no, I can't do this. I feel like crap for not eating meat. So I went back to eating meat. As soon as I went back to eating meat, everything changed again. Skin went back to normal, hair went back to normal, had heaps of energy like I always do. I've never been diagnosed, but I've been told I'm a little bit ADHD. I think I was diagnosed with attention deficit disorder when I was a kid. So that's the common ADHD, I think. But I was nervous about saying we kill our own animals. I was nervous about saying you can kill your own animal to eat, because I knew that there would be people out there who have very, very strong views on vegetarianism, on veganism, and they would be more than likely aggressive and intolerant of anybody else's view. And unfortunately, that's worked out to be true. But what I did was I stopped giving a fuck. And I went, you know what? They're not my target audience. They're not the people that I'm trying to reach out to and trying to help educate and trying to help, them on their own journey. And so I stopped worrying about them and started just worrying about the people that are actually interested in the things that I'm talking about. And when I did that, like I say, I got a few more trolls, but I also got so much more contact from people who were just like, yay, you're saying what we're picking up what you're putting down, basically. And I had a lovely interview. I can't even remember what episode. I'm actually going to post an episode list of all 100 episodes so that you've got the links for all of them. I had an episode with a lady called Lana Jo Salant, and she's from Canada, and she runs the Ethical Omnivores movement. And she was amazing. She was an ex-vegan and in a similar boat to me. She tried a few things, realised it didn't work for her, gone back to eating meat, and then gone almost one step further where she's animal-based like me. I certainly lean more towards animal-based or carnivore than anything else. And she went down that path too and commented that, I think she's a yoga instructor, and she commented that her health improved so much with that change in lifestyle that she realised that ethically sourcing all kinds of food was the better way to go rather than cutting an entire food group out. That being said, I don't eat a lot of wheat products because I find that I just don't tolerate it until I can grow my own wheat and mill my own wheat, and then I might start introducing it back into my diet. But I really changed as far as advocacy goes. I no longer worry that I'm going to offend people. What I look at it is I have a point to get across, and there are lots of people who understand and want to learn about that kind of information. And those that don't, well, you can't help stupid sometimes. There are some people who are just going to stick their heads in the sand and go, I don't want to even learn or know or view what you're talking about because I have this very narrow view of the world and I'm going to stick to that and you cannot convince me of otherwise. That being said, when people do, and I have had people send me articles to read, particularly there's a couple of vegan people who I don't know why they follow me, but they do. And they have sent me articles saying, oh, you need to know about this. And I've read it and it has not impacted my decision to be animal-based in my diet. So I take on board what they have to say and I'm more than happy for them to live that lifestyle. It's not going to change how I live. And I have got really strong about that now. Instead of trying to be the yes person, I've just gone, no. Thanks for the information. Bye. Community leadership. This is one that I wrote down and then I thought, God, it sounds so wanky. It sounds like I'm saying, hey, look at me, I'm the expert. But then the more I thought about it, the more I thought, I'm still going to leave it in there because you know what? I always thought that everybody knew how to raise chickens. I thought everybody knew how to dispatch an animal and clean it and prepare it for food processing. I thought everybody knew that. The reason I thought that was because I grew up with parents who were the original hippies, the original alternative lifestylers, we used to call it back then. And we killed rabbits to eat. We killed fish to eat. We killed kangaroo to eat. We had our own cows. I can remember watching Dad kill and butcher a cow that he had strung up on the front of a tractor to hang it up in the air so that he could work on it. We killed pigs and ate those. We processed all our own milk and butter and cream. We had eggs, obviously, and a veggie garden. Mum always had a veggie garden, always. Like plants, veggies, herbs, the whole kit and caboodle. So I just assumed that everybody had that knowledge. And it was funny because when the handy helper and I eventually moved in together and we had the little mini farm out at Gunning, I said to him then, we're talking about something, and I was out, I think it was before the bees came along, and I was pollinating zucchinis with a cotton bud. So I had a cotton bud and I was finding the male flowers and the female flowers, and I was transferring the male flower pollen over into the female flowers, so that, because I was getting no fruit and it was driving me insane. And the handy helper stood there and watched me, and he was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" He had never heard of it. He had no idea there were male and female flowers in some plants. He had no idea that the fruit would not bear if they weren't cross-pollinated, if the flowers weren't cross-pollinated, because the female flower couldn't develop into a fruit unless the pollen from the male flower got in. So he was freaking right out, and I was like, "But you know that, don't you? Like, everybody knows that." And he stood there literally going, "I've never fucking heard of that. I don't know what you're talking about." And from there on in, I started to pay more attention about what people did and didn't know. And I realised that, well, I'm not the expert. And I think to call yourself an expert in farming would be a bit of a stretch, because farming encompasses so much. And, while I would say I am almost expert level when it comes to goats and milking, I'm almost expert level when it comes to pasture-raised poultry for eggs and pasture-raised poultry for meat. Pretty handy with horses. I'm learning very quickly with Angora goats. Don't ask me anything about sheep. I know nothing about sheep. But beef cattle, pretty good with. Dairy cattle, reasonably good with also. So there are things that I am definitely up there on that knowledge scale. And Australians are terrible at it. As I said before, we have that tall poppy syndrome thing. We don't pat ourselves on the back and say, "You know what? You actually know shit. You know way more shit than other people." And I would struggle to do that, because to me it's very wanky to come out and say that. But you know what? I do know more than other people. And I have to stop. And over the last couple of months, last probably 6 months, I've got really good at it, where I've stopped saying to myself, "Oh, Cass, what are you doing? What are you doing trying to give this information to people? Who's going to listen to you? Who's going to believe what you have to say?" And then I think, hang on, I've been doing this for a while now. And, I don't have chooks dying every 5 minutes. I don't have goats dying every 5 minutes. If you go and look on the goat pages, holy crap. People say all the time on the goat pages, "I didn't realise goats killed themselves so often." Yeah, we've had some goat deaths. Do I have goats dropping dead every 5 minutes? No. Do other people? Yes, they do. Yes, and people have no concept. Like, there's so much stuff that they just don't know. So for me, taking that step up and saying, yeah, I am a leader within that community, and I am absolutely going to give all of the knowledge that I can give to other people, to me, that is altruistic. And I did a emotional, emotional intelligence test, not an intelligence test, it was an emotional work ethic test, because I've been looking at changing careers from my normal day job. And when I did it, the highest score I got was altruistic. Evidently, my main driver in work is to help others. Go figure. Anyway, that could explain why I've been working in the same job that I've been working in 24 years, which is law enforcement. That might have something to do with it. But anyway, that's another story for another day. So I certainly fall into that community leadership area now. And I'm happy to say that. Instead of holding back, I'm saying, no, that's me. And the last one that I think's changed very much over the last 2 years is my health focus as far as diet goes. And look, I always knew that, organically grown, and when I say organically, everything's organic if it's grown, but non-chemical fertilised, non-chemical treated, non-GMO, like more traditional style growing of fruit and vegetables, meat that has been raised without injections, without additives being added to the food to make things happen to it. That kind of food, I always knew that was better, but now I'm really pushing it. Now I'm at a point where I'm like, you know what? We're not the weird conspiracy theorist people when we want meat that hasn't been loaded with additives and injections and things like that. It's actually, I feel like I've found my tribe. There are people out there like me who don't want to be eating meat that has been loaded up with chemicals and fertilizers and synthetics. We just don't want that anymore. I get why manufacturers went down that track. They were trying to feed the masses. But I think now we're smart enough to realize we can still feed the masses without having to do all that. We just have to be smarter about our farming. And we have to just start treating farming like the really, really important skill that it is. I mean, without farmers, I say it all the time, hungry, naked, sober, not a good place to be in the world. We need to start treating farming like it is as important as what it is, because what we put into our bodies, and I think was it a Greek philosopher? Let food be thy medicine. And I really think that we have to take a step back and go, that's exactly what it is. Eating the right style of diet for you, and that could be different for you. It could be vegan for you, and that's fine. But so long as your vegan food is not the ultra-processed crackers and noodles and cookies and things like that, but real food that's been grown in the ground without synthetics, without fertilizers, without treatments, real food going into your body to nourish your body. And I think once people start doing that more often, they'll notice a dramatic increase in their health. Certainly I have. And for me, over the last 12 months, I've become really, really pushy about it. And like I say, in the past, I was a little bit nervous about things like that because I think I'm going to get shit canned by people who are going to go, oh my God, you're always talking about meat-based and animal-based and things like that. And then I realised that there's a lot of other people out there talking about the same because they've worked it out too. So I don't feel so bad now about pushing that kind of aspect of it. But like I say, if you are plant-based or you're not predominantly animal-based, that's fine, so long as you are eating real food, not ultra-processed, not Weet-Bix, not cornflakes, not crackers. Modern bread that we buy in the supermarket is just, like, honestly, go make your own sourdough. If you're doing that, then you're on the right track. Let food be your medicine. Let it make you healthy. Anyway, over the next 12 months, that's it for how we've tracked over the last 100 episodes. I think we've really changed so that I'm probably a lot more in your face and a lot less, hey, let's just keep the peace. And I'm okay with that. Even though there will be haters, I'm still okay with that. I feel pretty strongly about where we're tracking farming-wise. But over the next 12 months, what's going to happen? So I have been in fever pitch writing mode, and I am no writer, but I'm in the process of trying to take a leave of absence from my day job. And I've been in my day job for 24 plus years. So it's a huge step for me. It's been a huge part of my identity. I think I'm at a point where my industry has changed and I have changed. And certainly going through COVID really highlighted that for me, that there were things that and I'm not ever going to disagree with where I stood at work, but there were things that I didn't want to have to do that I did have to do. And as a result of that, I've made the decision that maybe I need to take a break from my normal day job and try some other things and see what is out there for me. I don't want to be working until, I know I'm not going to retire at 57, which is when I would normally retire, which is, for me is another 4 or 5 years away. I know I'm not going to retire then. I've got 2 kids who are still in high school. I'm still going to be working for a while, but I'm also always going to be working on the farm. But I want to spend the last 5 years of my true working life doing something that I'm really, really passionate about. And so I'm trying to take a step back from my day job and put more into my after hours job, which is this. So I've been writing like crazy. As some of you would be aware, I've got a book that's with the editor at the moment. By the time this comes out, it should be, fingers crossed, live on Amazon. Now, once it is live on Amazon, it will be available for purchase. However, I've got a bit of a giveaway at the end, so keep listening. Over the next 12 months, I'm going to write 13 books. I'm putting that out there. It's pretty scary to think about it, but I feel that, and they're not huge books. These are how-tos on very small parts of homesteading and farming. But some of the books that I'm writing about, the first one is raising chicken for meat. The next one's going to be raising chickens for eggs. Then in rough order, dairy goats, meat goats, sourdough bread making, homemade soap, making your own cleaners, cow meat, beef, cattle, milking cows, the ultimate food garden guide, beekeeping journey, growing your own fruit and nuts, a beginner's guide to making cheese. So they are 13 books that I have committed myself to write, one a month, over the next 13 months. And as I said, they're not huge books. They're little how-to books. When I say little, they're thorough, but they're not, I'm not writing it like a novel. I'm writing it like a step-by-step guide of how to do things. Now, each month over the next 12 months, each month is going to focus on one of those things. While I've got that book coming out, we will be discussing on the podcast those things. On social media, I'll be discussing those things because I really want people to start. And I'm not saying you have to do all of these things. Certainly from a homesteading perspective, trying to do all of it, especially in the first year or two of doing homesteading, you will drive yourself insane. There will be things that you would definitely not do. I mean, not everybody's going to be a soap maker. Not everybody's going to bake sourdough bread. Not everybody's going to raise beef cattle. You might only be on 5 acres, and having a cow might be well and truly out of your abilities, but you could have milking goats. So we're going to go through all of those things over the next 12 months. So starting from January now to January 2006, that's the process that we're going to follow. Now, over that period, there will be some book giveaways. So if you're already a listener, make sure that you keep listening. If you are not subscribed to the podcast, subscribe to the podcast so you know when it's coming out so that you can keep in the loop, particularly if there's, and I read those out in order of the year. So if there is a particular month that's going to interest you, if you're really keen to get into sourdough bread baking, then that month is, where my sourdough is May. So you definitely want to subscribe to the podcast so that you can then be aware of what month we're doing things and what month there'll be giveaways. So the way that it's going to work is after you've listened to this episode, you've got 2 things that you have to do. One, you have to be agreeable to leave a review for the book on Amazon. And this applies for all the books that I'm going to write. So if you are anti-Amazon, there's no way in hell you're ever going to go on Amazon to leave a review, count yourself out of this one. This is not for you. If you are more than happy to go on Amazon and leave a review, and you don't have to be a big spender on Amazon, you have to have an Amazon account as such, but reviews can be left by anybody. They're just not a verified review unless you're a regular Amazon purchaser, which I am because I sell on Amazon as well. So it'll be on Amazon. You have to be agreeable to doing a review after you've read the book. And I want an honest review. I want you to read the book and say, yeah, this was great. There's a few things lacking or whatever, so that I know and I can get feedback off you as to how to do my next revision of that book, because I will keep revising these books and making them better. But an honest review on Amazon is the first thing you have to be capable of doing, willing to do. And the second thing is to get in the running for the free books, and there won't just be one of them, you have to be able to give a podcast review. So whichever platform you listen to the podcast on, I'm on Spotify that's where I host it. But if you're on Apple Podcasts, what's the other? I can't think of all the other ones. There's a whole bunch of other ones. Whichever platform you're listening on, you have to go in, put a review on. It doesn't have to be a 5-star. However, if it is a 5-star, you'll make CJ a very happy girl. Put a review on, once you put the review on, take a screenshot of the review. And the only reason I say that is because what I've found is that when people go in and make comments on the podcast, it takes about 3 days before it comes through to me. So I don't see it straight away. So if you take a screenshot of the review that you've left and then email it to me at CEEJAY, the number 8, at mojohomestead.net. Now, if you're already a subscriber to my newsletters, you'll have that. You just have to hit return on a newsletter and that will be the same email address. Send me a screenshot of that review that you left on the podcast and let me know that you're willing to put a review on Amazon once you've read the book. I'm giving away 5 of them, 5 books I will give away to people to review for free. Now, this book in Australia is likely going to sell for $29.99 in Australia. It might be a little bit cheaper to start with while we're getting started. In America, that would be $19.99 US. So, and I'm prepared to send them to America. I have no problems with that. So if you're listening from any country where Amazon delivers, you can still be part of this. So if you're listening in the US, if you're in the UK, France, I've got some in South Africa. Hello, my South African friends. Some in Europe. I think I've got a couple of listeners in India. Hello to you. Amazon delivers to all those places. So if you are prepared to leave an Amazon review, just email me, say, here's a copy of my podcast review. I would like a copy of the book. I am willing to review it. Here is my address. And I will have a copy of the book, like a hard copy of the book, not an electronic copy, an actual hard copy of the book sent to your address. I think that's a pretty good deal. And I hope you do too. Anyway, that's my exciting news. And like I said, I am so happy to have got to 100 episodes. For those, and I know there are a few out there who've been following and listening for all that time. Laura, I know you have been listening forever because you comment quite often to me about things. And I really, really appreciate the support. It means the world to me. I really never thought that it would keep going this long. I never thought that I would enjoy it as much as what I have. And I didn't think that I would evolve as much over the last 100 episodes to be a bit more staunch about my beliefs on farming. But I hope that, that resonates with you. And I hope that's something that you go out and advocate for farming within your own communities. Because I think we need a lot more farming advocates out there to say, hey, don't forget, farmers are the people that feed you, that clothe you. And if you are a person who enjoys a glass of something alcohol-wise, guess what? They're providing that too. So without them, we're kind of screwed. Anyway, have a look in the show notes. I will have a list of all the links to all the episodes. So go through the episodes, the last 199 of them, and see if there's something you haven't listened to that you think, oh shit, actually, I'd be interested in that. Click on the link and it'll take you straight through to the episode. It's a Spotify link, so it'll take you through to Spotify. If you're not on Spotify and you don't want to be on Spotify, then go into whatever podcast platform you're on, type in Not the Farmer's Wife, and you can scroll back through any of the episodes that are listed there. If you know what number, it's going to make it real easy. So have a look at that list and see which ones you think you'd like. Anyway, again, thank you so much for listening. I can't wait for the next 100, and I will talk to you all again next week. Bye for now. Thank you so much for listening. From all of us at Mojo Homestead, we really hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, I ask just one small favour. Please subscribe and leave a review. Reviews help small podcasts like mine be more visible, so more people will know about us and be able to listen in. And don't forget to head over www.mojohomestead.net/launch and check out our freebies. We love helping families start their homesteading journey. Remember, life's too short for store-bought eggs.